Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the Virtual 143. We are under review coming at you live with, Nick, this is actually episode 50.
We've hit the 50 mark.
We have, and
if we're doing our math correctly, I believe the 1 year anniversary will be our first week back in the studio, if I'm
in trace weeks. That's three in
right.
Spanish. So, looking forward to that. Nick and I will be celebrating on the show, and it's interesting dynamic doing this virtually, but we press on. We promise episodes every week, so
I mean, we wouldn't have it any other way.
We wouldn't have it any other way or day than Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. You like what I did there, Nick? You like how I fixed that mistake?
All right, let's get into it.
Let's get into it with the stat of the week brought to you by Andrews Logistics. This is about the game this week, the big game of the season that we've all been looking forward to, Cowboys-Eagles, with our quarterback back. And actually, sadly, they were on their backup quarterback. Sad for them. But we are now 73-55 against the Eagles, the Cowboys are. And in the playoffs, we are 3-1. So I think it is safe to say mathematically that we own the Eagles just because our winning percentage is so high against them.
I mean, the numbers don't lie. This is not said without context, right? Like, we have numbers to back it up, and that's what they say. So, in light of that, our player of the week is Dak Prescott. And he put on a solid performance other than his little pick six at the beginning of the game, which we will talk about here in a minute. But he threw for 347 yards, completing 27 of his 35 passes, and he threw for 3 touchdowns. That's right. He put on a show.
Yeah, I looked there at the beginning that he was going to prove all the haters right with another pick six, actually, at the very beginning of the game, a pass that should have been completed to a wide-open Dalton Schultz that he very much underthrew and didn't even try to make the tackle at that
put us
point.
In the hole so early on. We were already losing 3-0 at that point, and that put us at 10-0. So I was just sitting there watching, and I was like, oh, boy. And when it rains, it pours.
It looked like it was going to be typical Cowboys at that point, and that we were going to blow that lead. I will say, it doesn't matter as much now. I mean, we're super happy from a dignity and a pride and an integrity standpoint to have beaten the Eagles because they are a much hated rival. But in terms of playoffs, that really didn't do anything for us because we lost to Jacksonville.
When we lost to Jacksonville, that just murdered it because now we'll have, if the Eagles lose out and we win out, then we'll have the same record, which does not really prove anything.
Now we need the Eagles to lose out, and we need to win out, and we need the Vikings to lose one game to take the number 1 seed. But obviously, if the Eagles lose out, we would take the division winner. We get a home playoff game. At this point, it looks like we're going to be playing the Bucks probably. If we get lucky, maybe the Panthers in the playoffs. But that's in a couple weeks, so we don't have to talk about that right now. Instead, we will now dissect the game. I got to highlight something that I saw that has been a problem all season, and it was very much brought to light on Sunday, and that was Trayvon Diggs getting cooked on about 3 big plays that he gave up because he got too greedy looking for the interception instead of covering his man. Nick, I'll let you take it from there.
I mean, it was like the 4th play, maybe 5th play of the game. I think you know what I'm talking about. He gives up that huge fade to A.J. Brown down the right sideline, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me, because we like to talk about how good we think Trayvon Diggs is, but he was out there playing like some burnt toast. And then overall, defensively and mainly in our secondary, we did not do a good job of covering their receivers. Devontae Smith had himself a game. A.J. Brown was producing right and left as he normally does. And then defensively up front, we could not get any pressure on the quarterback, finished the game with 0 sacks and I would say probably 0 QB rushes as well. So defensively, we weren't getting it done. And that's one thing that we've been able to fall back on, I think, literally all season, was how good our defense was. But they just for some reason didn't show up. They made some big plays with those turnovers, but for the most part, I was very disappointed.
I think that it also shows though the Eagles are the number one offense in the league. They have the number one offensive line, and they shut one of the best defenses in us down on Sunday. So that just shows how powerful the Eagles are offensively. Their offensive line is just they have 3 Pro Bowlers right now.
It's ridiculous.
They're very good, and Gardner Minshew played really well, and I think Gardner Minshew proved Nicholas and I's point in another episode. Jalen Hurts was nowhere to be found on Sunday because he was hurt. So Gardner Minshew's playing for him, played phenomenally. It did not look like the offense slowed down one bit. It didn't look like any different than when Jalen Hurts was in at QB.
He almost threw for 400 yards against like the third best defense in the NFL right now. So I don't think that you can say Gardner Minshew played a bad game. He had 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. So he played absolutely out of his mind.
It's about Jalen Hurts stats right there. So this episode's not about that, but just wanted to bring that to light and show that.
There's also only one QB this year that has thrown for more than 300 yards against the Eagles defense, and that would be Dak Prescott. Thank you very much, all of you Dak haters out there, especially Philly. Yeah, that's right. That happened. And I think Joseph, he said this, but I'm just going to reignite it, okay? This just proves that it is the team and not Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a system quarterback, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being a system quarterback. He's gonna make a career out of it, but he's not the MVP, okay? No, he's definitely not. Whenever you look at the score of this game, right, what was it? It's 34-40. When you look at that, do you get onto your quarterback? Absolutely not. You put up 34 points. It's not your quarterback's fault. It's your defense's fault. They gave up 40 points. If you want to win that game, then your defense should have played better. You didn't lose because of quarterback play. So the whole ideology that if they had Jalen Hurts, they would have won. No, absolutely not.
Agreed. I think Dak came out and Dak showed that he can handle the criticism that he's been getting. And it didn't bother him as much. One of the biggest things you have to do as an NFL quarterback is have a short-term memory, just like an MLB pitcher. When you give up a home run, or as a quarterback, when you give up a pick six, you have to forget about it and go back in there and do your job. And Dak brought us from down, 10 points. And I was pretty impressed by not just Dak, but we've been talking all preseason long about CeeDee Lamb and how he needs to be the number one guy. And I think that he came out. He's been showing out in some games. This was probably the biggest game for him to show out in. But he came to play and he balled out with over 100 yards receiving. I think 2 touchdowns and
put on a clinic. I mean,
he cooked one of the best defenses in the league.
I would say, obviously, to end this little segment off, one good takeaway and one bad takeaway. One good takeaway I had was that we were playing behind essentially all game. We tied it up in the middle, and then they pulled ahead. But essentially the whole time we were playing down, and our offense didn't waver. Like, they kept, fighting back, and they were able to just continue to ball out even though we were behind the whole time. And then the one bad takeaway was that you got to finish the game. And what I mean by that is we had prime opportunity at the end of the game, right? It was 34-37. Should have gotten ourselves a touchdown, which would have ultimately iced the game, but we can't punch it into the end zone at the end. So we end up kicking the field goal and then giving the ball back to the Eagles, and they almost drove down and scored a game-winning touchdown.
I mean, if we hadn't kicked that field goal, the game would have definitely been tied. I could see Mike McCarthy, he was flirting with the idea of maybe going for it on 4th and goal. Definitely a good idea to kick that field goal and take the points there. But yeah, when you get a fumble recovery at home with like 2 minutes left, you're up by 3 on the 20-yard line, and we got down to the 5. We got down there. We just couldn't punch it into the end zone. That's something you have to do, something that needs to be worked on. But our defense did come up in the end, and honestly, mainly because the clock helped them out a lot, which I'll take that. But we're obviously looking forward to playoffs now, where it's like you're not going to get lucky like that every time. If we face Brady in the first game, you give Brady the ball down 6 with a minute left in the game, it's pretty much over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially playoff Brady. I mean, I know he hasn't been playing too great this year, but you never can count that out. And that's who we're probably going to be playing first game, so that's just something we need to keep in mind and get better at.
It is looking like the Bucks are going to pull it out in the NFC South. That little, I don't know even what it is, that little cat fight they have going on down there.
They are playing the Panthers this weekend.
Yeah.
So whoever wins that game will probably win the division, I think.
I think the Falcons are just about out of it. They're probably going to lose out.
It is between the Saints, the Panthers, and the Bucks. The Bucks are looking like they are going to be. If they win on Sunday, they do win the division. I don't know what happens if they lose, but still, I guess, open at that point. So good job to the Cowboys this week. Way to beat the Eagles. That was just a good win just to have because we needed it going into the playoffs to give us some momentum.
And at the end of the day, I don't care that your starting quarterback wasn't playing, okay? Because whenever it is game time, you got to throw your 11 best guys out on the field, and it's versus our 11 best guys. So it doesn't matter. You had to throw 11 dudes out there, all right? You knew full well like 3 days before that Jalen Hurts wasn't going to play, so you have to game plan for that. So anyways.
Gardner Minshew's not a rookie.
I mean, just eat it.
Gardner Minshew's an experienced quarterback at this point, and playing in that system offense, like we said, showed that any quarterback can be successful in that offense, and he was very successful. That game was not on him. He played a great game. That game was just us. I think it was just the Cowboys playing better than the Eagles this time. And hopefully if we face them in the playoffs, we can do this again with Jalen Hurts in so we can silence some more doubters. But that's enough on that game. We'll really quickly look at some other games just briefly. Just one little thing, the Jags now have taken over their division. They haven't clinched yet. But if we beat the Titans, I'm pretty sure the Jags clinch this week if they win. And so looks like the Jags are going to the playoffs. Huge turnaround from them for last year. So good job for the Jags, even though I don't really like them that much because they beat us. But
I mean, if we're being honest, they're going to get smacked by whoever they play first round. I mean, they beat the Jets 16-3 on Thursday. And 19-3. Trevor Lawrence, he's been playing great, but I think once they face a real decent team in the playoffs, they will be stopped short.
Their defense is not very good at all.
I think a playoff berth this year just kind of shows hope to the fan base and to the team that this franchise is turning around. Obviously, not going to be near as good as you want it, but there is hope. You have faith in Trevor Lawrence, who is a young quarterback and shows great promise.
I think the biggest thing to watch for right now is not even in the NFC. The race for the number 1 seed in the AFC, it's heating up. Big game this upcoming week, Bengals and Bills. And so right now you've got the Bills. If they went out, they get the number 1 seed. They're in first right now. You got the Chiefs, who are basically a half game behind them because if the Bills lose a game, it's going to be the Chiefs. But if the Bengals beat the Bills, I don't even know what happens there because I guess the Chiefs would still need to lose a game. So the Bengals have the tie. If they beat the Bills, they'll have the tiebreaker on both the Chiefs and the Bills. But that's the 3 teams that are looking for that number 1 spot right now. And the Bengals play the Bills this Monday. Be a great Monday night game. And highly anticipated. That'll be a good one. And obviously I'm kind of rooting for Joe Burrow here to pull it out.
I mean, huge turnaround from Cincinnati. Yes. They started off pretty atrocious, and then, I don't know, the middle of the season rolls around and they just flip the switch, and it was the Bengals that we saw last year at the end of the season. They're kind of, I guess, recreating some of the same magic that they had before, right? They're getting hot like at the perfect time, right when it's before playoffs, and they're going to win the AFC North. Or they should win the AFC North if all goes to plan, and then they will secure a playoff spot.
Obviously, a loss. If the Bills win, it'll be between the Bills and the Chiefs for that number one seed. But the Bills, they just need to win their last two games and they'll have it. But it'll be a big test this week, going to Cincinnati and playing them on Monday night. Looking forward to that game. But other than that, nothing really changed in the playoff picture. Unfortunately, the Dolphins did give up the game to the Packers. Tua looked a lot like Dak did against Jacksonville.
He looked atrocious. 3 picks in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And so Aaron Rodgers and his Packers are still in it, barely, kind of. And so we're huge Commanders fans now. We need the Commanders.
Yes, sir.
So
the Vikings actually, they did win against the Giants. It was a little bit closer, I think, than everyone was expecting. It came down to a 50-something last-second game-winning field goal from Greg Joseph, who has done it multiple times this season.
I might be wrong.
Very comfortable. I think it was like 60
pretty sure
something.
It was a 61-yard field goal.
I think so.
I think
you know what?
Was.
You're right, because I remember it being an absolute bomb.
And this is the 7th game that they've won in the last drive of the game. I think this season the Vikings are used to playing in these close games, and so they'll be one of those teams that you can't quite count out when they're playing.
I was about to say you can't sleep on them because they're kind of like the Cowboys because they lost to us 40-3, so they got smacked, and so everyone was like they were frauds. And then 2 weeks ago, or I guess the week before this one, they were losing 33-0 to the Colts, and then they have this insane comeback and end up winning that game. So it's just it just depends on what time it is of day or whatever. I don't know what it is about the Vikings, but they just have it some days, and some days they don't.
And maybe this will be the year Kirk Cousins, wins a couple playoff games. We'll see.
Clutches up in the playoffs. I mean, we've never seen it before, but that could be – it's a strong possibility because this is a scary offense.
It is indeed, but
and probably one of the biggest upsets of the week, the Texans-Titans. Not because the Titans are so good, but because the Texans are so bad. The Texans secured their second win of the season, coming in Week 16. Yeah, that's right. Their second win in Week 16. That's pretty bad. So if you're the Titans, you should essentially quit.
Well, the Titans are on their backup quarterback, who's not very good, a rookie in Malik Willis. We get to play them on Thursday night, but the only problem is, we have one of the worst run defenses in the league, and we're going up against Derrick Henry. Pretty much the only worry and concern for that game is Derrick Henry. Hopefully should get the win, though. It's in Tennessee. It'll be pretty cold.
Well, we're going up against a mid-tier, bottom-tier team, so we like to act like a mid-tier, bottom-tier team. So there's really no telling what could happen.
We've struggled against the AFC South.
Will it be the Jacksonville Cowboys or the Philadelphia Cowboys that we saw? I mean, there's really no telling.
No, there isn't. But hopefully we'll win Thursday night.
The epitome of Dallas football is playing to the level of their opponent. Whether that is up here against the number one seed in the NFC, or that's down here to the Houston Texans. Granted, we won that game. We played like garbage.
We did not play very well, but hopefully Thursday night, just get a win. That's all we need. It can be ugly. It's going to be a cold game. It'll probably be a ground game most of the time. But
I think we needed this Philadelphia win. It was more of a moral win because we needed to prove to ourselves and to everyone else that, hey, we can still win games against good teams, all right? We're still in it to win it, because there was a lot of skepticism due to our loss to Jacksonville in such a atrocious fashion, but we're still in it. We're still a great team. We still present a good threat, and so you should be scared of us when you see us on the schedule.
Agreed. But all in all, good week from the Cowboys and exciting week in the NFL as we look for the playoffs.
So here, as we like to end our shows on Under Review, I've brought you a quote from the GOAT, Tom Brady. That's right. When you lose, talk little. When you win, talk less.
Handle yourselves with class, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what we try to do every week here on Under Review. Happy 50th episode. as we look towards that 1 year
Big
mark.
5-0.
As we have a few more weeks left. But thanks for tuning in this week. How about them Cowboys? And we will see you next week on Under Review.